Hey folks, it's time again for the Around Virginia video show. All you people out there in VirginiaPreps.com land, we appreciate you tuning in each and every week, and can comment along what you think as we get ready to close out October for high school football 2017 in Virginia. And I didn't really wear a Halloween costume. I went with a different look today with the sweatshirt and the Virginia Preps hat, black sweatshirt, grayish hat, or more beigeish hat. But we're going to talk about 17 games if I can squeeze them all in. We're going to be pressed for time here. Before we do that, though, I want to sort of look back at a couple of games last week. I had a chance to watch Westfield Centerville, which was the big showdown in Northern Virginia. Centerville was in that game, down only 7-3 at the break. I was teeter-tottering all week long, Westfield Centerville. I think they ended up saying on the video show Centerville, which was dead wrong. Westfield won it with just a virtuoso performance from their sophomore quarterback, Noah Kim, with the 6 for 6, almost 200 yards passing and a couple of touchdowns in the third quarter alone. He is our Virginia Trophy, Virginia Preps Player of the Week, in fact. And Mr. Kim and the Bulldogs stay undefeated as I pick up the pin I just dropped. Two-time defending state champs, looking for a three-peat this year, and Kyle Simmons' group is fully equipped to do so. I was just thoroughly impressed with the defensive front, with all those guys led by Nolan Cockrell. Really a force from the Bulldogs up front. And Israel McClain back at the linebacker spot. He was terrific as well. I think Coach Simmons has to like what he's seen out of his team. They're rounding into form at the right time of the year, which they've done the last couple of seasons on their way to state championships. Stonebridge Tuscarora was a lot closer than we expected, just a 1-point win for Stonebridge. Mickey Thompson did not mince words afterwards, pretty much just disgusted in a lot of ways with the way his team played, which his team is still unbeaten. It still can achieve all its goals, which include going undefeated, beating Broad Run a week from now, getting the number 1 seed for the playoffs, and winning a state title. They've lost the last 2 years in the title game to Highland Springs. I think it was more a case of Tuscarora showing they're a little bit better than some people may realize, as that defense proved to me it's not just an offensive-driven machine there. Mike Burnett's team can get stops, and they played really well on that side of the ball to go with an offense that is usually pretty prolific. They run into a very stout Stonebridge defense. And the other game that got my eye, Stanton River, William Byrd. We'll touch on that a little bit later on with William Byrd playing Lord Botetourt coming up. But without Larry Basham, they give Stanton River a scare, and now they're a team we got to keep an eye out for, even though their playoff seeding is not too good looking right now for Class 4 Region D at 7-1. The Terriers trying to help themselves there. And also the last Class 1 unbeaten went down as Riverheads fell to Robert E. Lee of Stanton, as Jaden Williams and Lehman got it done. A big win for them. And they're one of like 5 or 6 teams worthy of being in the top 10 in Class 2, but just can't crack it because everybody's got one loss or they're just really good right now. The Class 2 top 10 is as deep as I think any division right now. And I was saying Class 4 for a while. I've said in the past Class 6. Loving what I'm seeing out of Class 2 is there are so many good teams in the postseason. There's got me just tingling with anticipation. I'm excited for that. We're going to begin with our game look here, in-depth. Hermitage and Manchester going to the 804 to start things off. Hermitage led by that terrific defense. You got the linebacker, Mateo Jackson, who's one of the best in the state, any division. He's committed to James Madison. They also have on the back end Jabril Murray, the Naval Academy commit. And this Panthers team, while the offense is good with James Carney at quarterback, C.J. Jackson running the ball, Ollie Jennings catching the ball, they really win with their defense first. We saw it right out of the gate in late August against Highland Springs, holding that high-octane, potent, vaunted attack down. And they come in now facing a Manchester team with Brendan Clark and Colin Harding. Harding, the 2-sport star also in basketball, and Clark, the junior QB, going to Wake Forest. He's committed there. If you hold this offense down, it'll be further proof that they have a stingy defense. They did a good job against Highland Springs, did it against Dale, and I expect them to do it once again here and keep Manchester in check enough to win this ball game. I'm going with the Panthers in that one. Game I'll be at in the 757, Deep Creek, Kings Fork. It's a Southeastern District showdown. 2 outstanding running backs. You got Darren Butts for Kings Fork, who picked up a couple of offers today, in fact, from Norfolk State and Hampton University, a couple of local schools out of the MEAC in the Tidewater area. And then you have Damian Everett, the 1,000-yard back at Deep Creek. Butts over about 1,200, 1,300 yards on the season. To me, this game comes down to Kings Fork just being a little bit more diverse and explosive, offensively well-rounded. Deep Creek should get its quarterback back into Sean Jones, who's been out. Michael Ure has been filling in for him. It won't surprise me if Purple Thunder roars and Deep Creek gets the win to go to 8-1 and really get closer to sewing up that number 1 seed for Class 4 Region A. With Lafayette and Kings Fork battling for it. Kings Fork knows that they lose this one before they play Oscar Smith on senior night, regular season finale. That's a colossal matchup should the Bulldogs win this one. And Oscar Smith would then have a chance potentially to make that 100 straight Southeastern District victories. That if they lose these 2 games, they can drop to the number 6 seed for the playoffs. They win both, they can be the number 1 seed. That is just a giant gap. Can't ever recall that gap being that big for 1 to 6 in the 18 playoff format we've had here in the last 6-7 years. So give Kings Fork the edge by a whisker. Another game I see by a whisker edge, we go to Tuscarora John Champ. I like Tuscarora close in this one. John Champ has a great running back in Carl Garman III. We've touched on him before. I think Tuscarora showed their defense can hold up enough. Wasn't so sure early in the year, but remember, they lost a couple of games to very good teams in Class 5, Broad Run and Stonebridge. So did John Champ. Champ also has a win over Centerville on its resume. We'll go with the Huskies in a tight one. Before we jump back to the 804, we talked about Hermitage Manchester. Let's go to a game that's going to be huge with Class 1 and Class 2. We mentioned Riverheads with that loss last week, trying to bounce back, not suffer back-to-back defeats, which we know Robert Castro's team hardly ever does that. Taking on Central Woodstock, and this team has just been putting up mega numbers. And they're 5th or 6th right now in our Class 2 rankings. Undefeated. Could very well be higher. Probably should be higher. Problem is Class 2 is so good at the top when you look at Goochland and Union, in spite of the quarterback injury, and Appomattox, the 2-time defending state champs, who are starting to look like they have a chance to three-peat, that Central Woodstock just hadn't had a chance to move up because they weren't ranked to start the year, and it's unfortunately how it goes. Kyle Clanton, Varsity Bright, all those weapons they have. Zeb Dyer at quarterback. I just think it's going to be a little bit too much for Riverheads, who's good enough to win this game, but I think Central Woodstock will block, tackle, do all the fundamental things to get it done. So we'll go with the Falcons of Central Woodstock in that game. We jump back to the 804 with Dinwiddie and Hopewell. And Hopewell had that tough L last week to Thomas Dale. They've had a couple of L's here. Also lost, if you recall, in a year or two, Norcom in a game that was really tight. They do have a great running back in Ronnie Walker going to Indiana. Greg Cuffey at quarterback is a threat too. This is a game where I just feel like Dinwiddie, it's all the makings for Dinwiddie to get the W. And they know they need to because you have Monacan unbeaten, Louisa undefeated, right there trying to get that number 1 seed for Region B in Class 4. So there's importance for sure for Dinwiddie to get this win. And every test that's come the General's way for Billy Mills and company, they seem to answer, and I think this will be another one that they pass with flying colors. Offense, defense, special teams, all 3 phases. They're as sound a football team right now as there is in the state, led by the Ohio State recruit in Kevon Pope, and they have a lot of guys contributing to their success. Going back out west, you have Lord Botetourt 7-1, William Byrd 7-1. Byrd, as we sort of hinted at, they're number 7 right now in the Class 4 Region D postseason picture. It's hard to believe at 7-1. And without Larry Basham, who they are supposed to get back for this game, from what I'm hearing, 26 touchdowns the first 7 games. He's a record setter for the Terriers running the ball. They had that 18-13 loss close to Stanton River, and Sam Dancer, the quarterback, was just superb in that game. Watched a little bit of footage from that one. And Lord Botetourt now with Jesse Hansen, Noah Overstreet, the really, really tough line of scrimmage play with those guys. They've had a couple of scares, I'd say, similar to Colonial Forge from Class 6, where you say, they've been in some lower scoring games, but I think both defenses are just rock solid. They were both preseason number 1 choices, Lord Botetourt in 3, Colonial Forge in 6. Forge hasn't taken an L, came close, winning in overtime against C.D. Hilton. Their defense has just been excellent. They got a good quarterback, too. Lord Botetourt's offense is young. They've had some young faces they've had to incorporate after graduating Garrison Mayo. The JV has been just unbelievable the last couple years, and they're going to win with defense, low scoring. So this game might mirror in a lot of ways the Stanton River game. I will say if Byrd plays as well as it did a week ago, they will win this football game. I'm not sure they'll match it 2 weeks in a row, even with Basham potentially back in the fold. I'm going to go with Botetourt close. But if I read it into the night, William Byrd wins by a touchdown or 2, it's not going to really surprise me because they're good enough to. And I think some people questioning the competition, fair to an extent, but you got to give this team its due. If they play Both Botetourt and Stanton River back-to-back close, and they win one of them. You got to give them their due, folks. I know some people in the message boards don't really buy into what Jeff Huffel's team has done, but you got to really give them their due if they win this ball game coming up. And it's a game for Botetourt to prove themselves a bit too and stay in that hunt for a top seed and be really that championship contender that they had aspired to be when the season began. They've looked like it through 8 games. You want to definitely continue it as you get to games 9 and 10 heading into the postseason. We referenced Thomas Dale having played the likes of Dinwiddie and Hopewell in that old Central District. They've had some great battles over the years in the Central District for hoops and football and all the sports. And now they're bringing a team from the Eastern District, which I always look at as the district from Tidewater that most mirrors the Central District in Richmond. And Granby at 6-2, a surprise. Dale, not really a surprise at 6-2, but they might be without Chris Tyree, who had the thigh injury in the win over Hopewell. That's not going to matter a ton because Dale will still run the ball and get the W over an improving Granby team that, unless they get this win, I'm looking at them as a 5 or a 6 seed for the Class 6 playoffs Region A. I've crunched more of those numbers in other regions so far, probably opening up at Woodside, Todd Stadium in the 4-5 matchup for Sekou Wilson's Comets, though they still have to play their city rival in Maury, who's got a bye this week. Don't want to lose that game where you could slide all the way down to a 7 or 8 seed, and then you might see a Lancetown or an Oscar Smith or an Ocean Lakes, and that might not be pretty for your first-round draw. Granby trying to win their first playoff game since the 1960s, way back in the day this year. Stafford and Brookpoint, you mentioned playoff situations, or I mentioned them. You didn't mention them. You're watching me talk. Stafford is 7-2 at Brookpoint, who is 6-2. Winner here has the inside track to the number 1 seed in Region D, Class 5. Brookpoint coming off that surprising win over North Stafford. I was ready to put North Stafford on that same pedestal as the likes of Stonebridge, Hermitage, and Hot Springs. It really was start of the year. Just so explosive, so much talent for Joe Mangano's Wolverines, led by the top junior running back in the state in Devin Ford. They have Nana Asadu, the lineman, committed to Penn State. They have Devin Ravenel, Brenner Ravenel's younger brother, committed to James Madison. He struggled a bit at quarterback last week, had a lost fumble, and I just don't know what to make of them right now. Still think they can be good, and they have Colonial Forge next week, so they can get it together and really get going as the playoffs begin. But Stafford, I will give the nod to close in this one. Lavelle Armstead, 882 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns. He's the difference to me as Brookpoint comes off that win over North Stafford. Similar to Massaponax, I'm not sure they can make it stick. Massaponax, a team in Class 5 fighting for its playoff life here as we wind down the regular season. Class 1, Washington and Lee 7-1, at Essex 7-1. Essex lone defeat 8-0. Sussex Central, opener of the year. You've probably read a lot of Marcel Mason's content on the site about this on VirginiaPreps.com with Sussex Central trying to get back to that state championship game. Had the result that Curtis Jefferson and the Tigers didn't love. Essex is a team that could get in their way. WNL thinking they could too as they get their receiver back, J.J. McNeil, 8 touchdown catches. He's been dinged up. Carson Bell had 6 total touchdowns last week as WNL got back to their winning ways off the loss. I'm going to go with Essex in this game. They have won the last 5 meetings, make it 6. They're putting up 45 a game since that loss. They found the offense. That was one of my hat hits last week. They've rediscovered it. And it's a program that this time of the year, they get really dangerous. They have a history, and I'm going to lean with them even against that WNL attack that could do some damage through the air. Just not sure that they'll do it for all 4 quarters. They might hit 1 or 2 big plays. Not sure they can do it for the whole game. We haven't talked a ton about Eastern View here on Around Virginia, and we should be talking more about them because they're 8-0. They have one of the most electric wide receivers in the state in Diego Hunter. They have a great running back in Trey Holmes closing in on 1,000 yards, putting up tremendous numbers offensively and scoring points in bunches. They haven't had that great competition yet. A team that has, with a not-so-pretty record, is James Monroe. 3-5. We know about Rich Survey's program. The Yellow Jackets are always in the hunt, it seems like, come playoff time for a championship. This year's team, a little bit down to a degree, had a key guy transfer out before season to Stafford, in fact, at the running back spot. But I still like them in what is, I've said on video and on record a couple times, one of the weakest regions, if not the weakest region I've ever seen, which is Class 3 Region B. I still like them to win that region. I know Thomas Jefferson of Richmond is the number 1 seed, and I don't mean to knock them or those teams in it. But this is a game where James Monroe can compete with Eastern View and have a chance to win. It'll sort of make me feel better about that hunch I have. Eastern View, this could be one of their closer battles here if James Monroe comes to play the way they are accustomed to in these type of games, late October, early November. We'll find out, as this is sort of a late measure stick for both before the playoffs get going. Charlottesville is 6-2 at Louisa 8-0. I gave this game a lot of thought about going to. It's Mark Fisher's final home game regular season as the coach. He's retiring. He's had all the health issues, and we wish Coach Fisher and his Lions all the best here as they get ready for the playoffs. So really the sentimental story and favorite, and people are pulling for them and rooting for them, and it's easy to see why with what they got going on there at Louisa. And some great running backs on the field in this game. Some great ball carriers. You're going to have Sebaeus Foley for Charlottesville. You got Malik Bell and Job Whalen for Louisa. To me, what swings the game, though Charlottesville's won against Louisa as recent as a year ago, the defense for Louisa led by that stud junior linebacker in Brandon Smith. He's the guy that will keep Charlottesville from continuing to run the ball for all 4 quarters. They might do it for a couple periods for a stretch there in the game. Don't see them doing it for the whole game. Go with Louisa to get the W. Union at Abingdon, 8-0. Bears at Abingdon, who's 5-3, coming off that 21-13 loss to Ridgeview, where Pierre Jordan was out with the hip injury. I'm not sure what his status is, and that could really affect my pick here. If Jordan plays, I kind of like Abingdon to win this. If he doesn't, going with Union. And Union's overcome the injury to Bailey Turner, their quarterback, with the torn ACL. They've used some different guys there, and that passing element is a question mark as we get ready for the playoffs, but they still have James Mitchell. They still have Braxton Zirkle. They still have talent there, and the Bears have built a winning culture. A lot of people think it's their year. I would feel even better if they had the healthy quarterback. Still got time to get it all figured out and navigate what is a really brutal Class 2 western part of the state. One of those teams is the Graham G-Men at 7-1 at Fort Chiswell, who's 6-2. Give me the G-Men with that passing combo of Cam Ellen and Taman Cook. Taman Cook is a dynamite player, too. He's getting recruited by a number of schools, much like Mitchell. I know Michigan State is in the mix with him. Marion at 8-0 at Virginia High, who was 6-2, and got a lot of good players on the field in this one. You got Jamie Lathrop, the Cats quarterback, with over 1,500 total yards. You got Aaron Rose, Bobby Medley, a little versatility there. With Marion's putting up 37 points per game. They did have that win, 22-18 over Richlands, their first since 1987. This is the hardest game, believe it or not, for me to pick all week. This is my Westfield Centerville game from a week ago, which means whatever I say here in a minute, I'm pick and go the other way because I'm going to get it wrong. I'm really conflicted, folks. I don't know where to go in this game. Marion's got the great linebacker, Owen Hall. But you know what? I just have a hunch at home. The Bearcats need this. The unbeatens are dwindling from, we've had 30 to 22 to I think it's 17 or 18 now. Another one's going to get nipped close. Go with Virginia High. But you know what? Kelby Ford, Austin Wyatt, they have a chance to prove me wrong, and they probably will. That's a tough one to call. A couple other games I want to just quickly mention. Not going to go in depth on them because we're running out of time here. Harrisonburg at Spotswood. I'm curious to see if that Spotswood pass rush with Drake Tomasi. The Blazers snuck into the top 10, and I thought they would disappear quickly because all the teams at the bottom of the Class 3 top 10 have done so. They're hanging in there right now, despite some not-so-pretty results and some low-scoring results. Tomasi's a big-time pass rusher. He's going to go after A.C. White, the QB for Harrisonburg. That's a good matchup to see who wins that one. Millbrook at Liberty. Millbrook's got Isaac Brown, Savon Smith. Pioneers should keep it going. Liberty's coming off that loss to Kettle Run by a whisker, their first defeat of the year. And next week, you got Sharando, Millbrook hosting them. Last year it was 42-41 Millbrook, one of the most exciting games of the year in the state, and that should be a doozy of a ball game again with those two. And we'll close out with our 16th, 17th game. I believe it's our 17th game. Poquoson Lafayette back into 7-5-7. Bay Rivers District battle. You have Andy Lynn's Rams taking on Elliott Duty's Islanders. Lafayette's trying to make it 50 in a row in the Bay Rivers District, and I think they will get it done in the BRD over Poquoson, who plays them tough. We had a poll question on HS Sports Talk 941. Player of the year, Armani Burden for Lafayette, the Navy commit, or Colton Hicks, Poquoson. I'll tell you what, I know Poquoson had that big of a fan base. I know they had a lot of fans, but man, goodness, they came out in droves voting for Colton Hicks. He won the award, but the guy who's going to be the star of this game is going to be Jack Irwin. No relation to Steve, the crocodile guy. Jack Irwin, he's committed to Richmond on a lacrosse scholarship. He's going to be the guy that gets it done at linebacker and keeps that Poquoson running game in check. He'll be the star of this game. Go with Lafayette in that one. So that'll do it for Around Virginia. Make sure to tune into the radio show every Saturday, 10 a.m. to noon. I will not be there for this Saturday. Coach Young will handle the duties. I will be calling in. And go to virginiapreps.com, your one-stop shop for all your high school sports and high school football information, news, recruiting tidbits. We got it all. Message boards, free and premium. We want to hear from you. and enjoy your Halloween. We will talk to you again in November. See you later.